So today I just want to talk about, there's been a lot of chatter about aligning product models, product profession, and Agile, and just how the two have diverged. And, I just want to talk to you this morning about how we've been successful. This is an institutional banking model of kind of how we went about it, the things that we did to make sure that we are aligned all the way from strategy and vision all the way to outcomes. And it took a couple times. There was a lot of learning. We had started out with a simple Agile Scrum model. Then we went to studios. Then we went to scaled Agile, and we kind of ended up at a crossroads of all of those that we just called ways of working. And so basically, we really championed a couple things. One was, always listening to the customer, from the strategy level all the way down to the outcomes level. And we made sure that that was very apparent from both of our C-level folks all the way down to the QA testers and folks that were getting market research back. We made sure that that was aligned. The second thing, we only went as fast as the organization could stand. We didn't try to push the envelope. We met the organization where they were in terms of speed and churn. And the ultimate thing was change management. How quick the organization and culture could adapt to change. And then, at the end of the day, we were an in-person bank that needed to go to a digital bank. And so this was a huge change. And we were already doing some of it, but we had a very astute digital officer and C-level folks, as well as all of the folks down the chain. And we made sure that everyone was involved and that we actually worked the process how we needed to, and did a transformation, which, I hesitate to use the word transformation because it's never done. It's always continuous improvement and to get better and better as we go through through each cycle. So I just want to kind of tell the story about, what we did, how we looked at things, and some of the pitfalls that we ran into, which was a lot of them. So basically, the whole thing was, are we aligning digital, Agile, and product? And this is kind of our success story of what we did. And so at the beginning of the day, we were concerned that the messaging was slow to the street and to the market. That there wasn't a lot of confidence in the message. We had to do those last minute, hey, we have an analyst call tomorrow. What are we going to talk about? And what does it look like? And how do we make sure that we are giving the market a view of exactly where we are and the things that we have coming up? And then the third thing was basically, are we aligned with the vision of some of the what some of the customers want, what our design folks are after, what our consumers want, what it looks like in the different areas of banking, which, by the way, we are super successful with because we won a lot of awards for our online presence, for our customer service, for our mobile app, and just some of the innovations that we did. We were early on in doing an AI-enabled chat, which was awesome. We were very early on in doing video banking. So during the COVID years, some of our at-home bankers could communicate directly with their customers, so they didn't lose that in-person experience of what they had when they came into the branches. And then they had a lot of tools that were simple and intuitive that you could get to. There's a lot of apps that I'm sure, not only banking, but other apps that you've used that it's like, man, I have to do 17 clicks to get to anything. And the customer experience is not there. The vision really hasn't aligned to the outcomes experience. And that's one of the things that gets lost in a lot of organizations. They get so concerned on, is the process working right? Or, am I doing the right things? Have I had 7 stand-up meetings? Or, what does that look like? And so, we wanted to make sure that that all was working correctly. And so so this is kind of how we aligned it. If you look at the center of this, it's the business. And, we made sure that we 100% championed what the business wanted. And because they had the insights through their CX and UX research of what our customers were wanting, what the banking community was looking for, and having a little bit of that sense of innovation of how that went forward. So we were at the corporate strategy. I just basically modeled this with four market promises. We had a couple strategic areas that we wanted to explore and deliver, and that was intimately aligned with the leadership. It was a continuous dialogue, as well as the business lines, and each business line had what we called a product council. And so you'll see the iterative arrows going each way. Those were ongoing conversations, whether it was back of an envelope conversation or formal conversations or planning, or, one of the things we took from Scaled Agile was the program increment, but we had kind of changed it. We took it to quarterly product planning. And so basically we put product at the center of everything that we did, and align that directly to strategy. And it gave us kind of 4 things that we identified is, the confidence in the market communication. It grew exponentially. The collaboration and alignment. Everyone knew what they were doing. I know in some organizations you have folks that are coding and they have no idea where that piece of code is going or what it's doing or what it's enabling. But with this model, everyone knew kind of where their oar hit the water, right? And what they were paddling to. One thing that was a serious concern is that we had such a complex capital expenditure program. It was multiple reviews. It took months and months, and if you wanted any more money because you wanted to enable a different customer experience or the market change, it was like pulling teeth to get to that. And so with this model, it really opened up that funding model. They were funding product groups through the product council, and they would say, okay, this is what we're going to spend in this area. You don't have to come back through the formal process. It's just basically a re-ask of, hey, these are the products these are the features or the products that we're enabling. This is what we're going to go through. And it was a much simpler way of funding all of our models, a very much more iterative and expedient way of modeling and funding all of our products. And then we could change to OpEx when everything was in operation. And then we had a continuous product discovery, all the way from what the customer wants, that would come all the way back up to corporate strategy through these facilities that we built. And we always incorporated that market voice. So when we had communications to the analyst or to the market, it was like, hey, these are what our customers are asking for. This is what we delivered in this phase or in this quarter, and this is what we plan to deliver. And all of that was based in fact and in vision and in strategy. And it was a beautiful thing because everybody was going the same way. You had design folks designing reusable attributes. You had, Agilist and ways of working folks designing better and quicker ways to deliver. You had engineers coming up with different and new ways of building things that was rooted in this is our standard that we're doing across the organization, whether it be APIs, whether it be code, whether it be the way that you're building a website or a data mart, or anything like that. It just all worked because we were all going the same way. But we started from a very scattered area. It was a prime example is when we first started working on this, our Agile tools, we had 5 Agile tools. We had Excel, we had version 1, we had Rally, we had Jira, and then we had back of a napkin. So all kind of different things that we were working on. So that's kind of where we started, and where we ended was a very blended and collaborative product model. And so let me kind of just go through what this model looked like. So the corporate strategy flowed down to the business lines that each had a product council, and that product council was made up of the chief digital officer, the EVP of strategy for that area, the EVP of technology, and the titles aren't as important. It's just I want to demonstrate what level they were at. So they were at the leadership level, and knew what we were trying to build. Our design folks were there. Our product management folks were there, very prevalent. And then our agilists and delivery folks were in the room, so we could make sure that we were saying, all right, if you want to do this, this is the best way to do it, and this is how we can flow it down. And so for each product council, they would take the quarterly product planning ahead. They would work ahead of the quarterly product planning and say, these are our visions for this quarter. This is what we delivered last quarter. These were our market promises. This is our strategy. Let's figure out how it aligns. And so at the end of the day, their 4 outcomes were, let's solidify and establish this roadmap. Let's tie in the strategy. Let's define what those products and services are, and how the vision matches everything. And then let's prioritize what needs to be delivered in this quarter. And for each of those product councils, we had individual product groups. So if you had like a consumer product council, right? You had like the web application, you had the mobile application, just different product groups. We went through several iterations of defining what that product group looked like. We matched it from function to technology to different ways of doing it. We sliced and diced, and we were super iterative and collaborative to figure out what worked best for us. In some cases, we didn't take a prescriptive model at all. It was, these are the things that we need to do, and this is how we need to operate, and these are the things that we need to deliver. So it was very collaborative. We got some legacy and hardened executives to actually step out of the box and take a chance. We really pushed on the experimentation of, hey, we have an innovation group. I know you want to deliver this particular feature or this particular piece of product. Let's put it in an innovation group and get a test case and work through, do some wireframes and some experiments and see what people think of it. Is it the best? And then once we did that, we could actually put it into the market or put it into our strategy and things like that. So we had a fantastic innovation group that kind of worked through ideation kind of ahead of what we're doing, and it was pretty cool. So that's kind of where we were in that area, and so each of those product groups, we fed them. So you'll see the product group here on the top left, and so each one of them had a quad, and you'll see that our product counselors won a quad because we had to have more people on that, because we wanted to make sure that the executive level was tied directly into the delivery level and figured out what that looked like. And so so each of the product groups had an executive quad, which was the leader of the product management, our engineering leader, our design folks, and an agilist in that group, and so that group had a bunch of different product teams underneath them, and those were our operational quad. And so what you'll see in the box here to the left is kind of what that looked like. So in each quad, we had a product manager, that was intimately tied to the product manager leader, which was also tied then to the product council, which is also tied to the chief product officer and to the strategy. And so everything was linked. Nobody was left out. We didn't, give them a bone of, hey, here's a little product owner and they can write stories and accept them. This product manager was intimate with the team and knew the strategy, knew the vision, and knew the design, which was imperative for us to work like that.
That's great, David. So what you just pointed out there was that you did, or the company here did, deviate from the Scrum norms of putting a product manager and product owner in a horizontal relationship. You actually did not have a product owner. You had product managers with direct access to the engineering teams.
Correct. And, they did product owner duties. They wrote stories.
Sure.
They still were working through that, but they were directly tied to the business and directly tied to the organization and to the vision. And then also our CX leaders and our UX leaders through design were intimately involved with them as well. And so we had those folks in the quad making those decisions. And the beauty of this model was that we could replicate this onshore or we could replicate this offshore. We took an extended amount of time to find an offshore partner that would kind of buy into this model of autonomy offshore, of this is the vision, these are the outcomes that we want. We all operated from the same prioritization roadmap and backlogs, but they were given the autonomy of saying, this is how we built this product, and this is how it's going to fit into your organization. So we had very burstable scale. So when we pulled our offshore partner into the fold, we did it on a sliding scale. We didn't just throw everybody to the mix of, hey, we're going to enable 32 quad teams and delivery teams and go at it. We kind of were very meticulous on how we brought those teams on. We are very meticulous on the prioritization of those teams. If we had something that was uber important to go to the market, that's how we scaled up. We said, okay, for this feature and this product, we need extra capacity. We're going to use this offshore. And because we had a very flexible funding model and a very fluid funding model, we were able to do that. And say, this market is expecting this type of product. We need to scale up because we don't have capacity. And it wasn't capacity that builds stuff and ends up in a bottleneck. It was capacity that was actually delivering and fulfilling the product promises as we went forward. But it was all governed by these squads because that was the leadership that had the insight, that had the knowledge, that had the financials, and then had the responsibility and the accountability for delivering those pieces of product. And as we went, we had metrics and OKRs that flowed all the way up through our chief strategy officer. So at any point in time, we knew exactly where we were in delivering pieces of product. And if we were going to be late to the market or early to the market or what it looked like, we actually had a very good idea of what we looked like. And so, everything could scale through these product groups. We would add teams, and a typical team here, as you see in the top right-hand corner, would be led by a product person. They would have, 5 to 7 engineers on the team. Our design, UX, and CX could be shared. And then we always had an agilist within the mix. And sometimes those agilists, I hesitate to call them scrum masters. They did that role, but they were also instrumental on finding better ways of working and coaching the team and working through. So our agilists were very, very versatile. And they were also part of the accountability team that said, we're gonna sign up to deliver this, and this is how we're gonna deliver it, and these are the things that we're very interested in delivering. And so you had iterations at this level, you had iterations at the product council level, and you had iterations at the executive level. And everything flowed back and forth. It wasn't a one for one flow, because it was adaptable of how big our products were, what our services looked like. We actually had a product group that had enabling services, whether they enabled what APIs, experience APIs or domain APIs, what those look like. We had technology enablement, and then what you don't see on here is architecture and security and legal and things like that. They were all embedded in the teams. We didn't need them full time on the team, but they were embedded, whether they were a part-time member of the executive of the quad squad, or if they needed to speak to the product council or anything like that. But they were very intimately involved. It just really complicates the graphic if you start putting every single role on the graphic. And so this is kind of the model that we used. We adapted it as we went forward. We used our tooling. We used Mural. We used Jira. We used Confluence for our OKRs. And then we used a lot of different design tools. We used Figma and a lot of different design tools out there. But, at the end of the day, this model was terrific because, it was very focused on product, very focused on outcome, and very focused on alignment and inclusion of everything that we had to deliver that product.
So I have a question for you just about the structure of the teams here. So these different quads, as you laid them out here, how many people were part of the delivery team here, or engineering team, and what was the what are the gray people down there? And can you describe how many people are involved, what their roles were, and how those interactions worked?
Sure. So the gray teams and the green teams, I just basically mixed them to show that we could do onshore and offshore. It's just different types of teams. So that's the only designation there. The teams that we built were what we tried to call two pizza teams. Basically, it wasn't any bigger than you could feed two pizzas with. So basically, it had a product person. Our engineers, we had probably between 5 and 7 engineers on the team. We had between a full-time design UX person, and then we had a shared person, and then we also had a shared person between an Agilist. And so basically our teams were, 10 to 12 people. We didn't have super huge teams because we found that in our organization, it really limited the flow and really limited the communication. It just added too much complexity to everything. So we had smaller teams that were very interactive and very collaborative, not only in tooling, but also in conversations and threads and working through that. So, we were able to do the onshore offshore mix very, very well because of that. And then also led by squads, whether it be the executive quad or the product or the regular quad squad. And so that's how they worked. And then basically the executive quad was the leadership of the product group. So basically folks that had not only product experience, but in most cases domain experience. So if it was a customer application, they had worked with banking customers and kind of knew what they were expecting and could use the research and use the they also spoke a little bit of engineering. And then our engineers were all over the place. We didn't source from one specific area of the United States. We were all across the United States, and then also globally. we operated our offshore groups out of India. So we had some of our strategic Indian partners come to the United States and actually sit in those quad squads on the same time zone. So they were able to see what was going on, knew the strategy, knew the vision, and knew where we were in all aspects. Our Agilists, we had varying levels. At the time, we called them principal Agile coaches all the way down to just an Agile coach that had oversight of a couple different teams. And then our Agilists, like I said, they were, I hesitated to label them Scrum Masters, but that was one of the duties that they did. But they did a lot of team coaching, and they did a lot of process improvement as we work through the delivery model.
Okay, and your microphone went out a little bit for me earlier. You said that the Agile coach was a part-time team member, so they were contributing to multiple teams?
They were.
Did you find a lot of advantages to the fact that they actually had visibility of multiple teams rather than one team?
I do. That's one of the reasons that we did that is because they were able to cross-pollinate and cross-collaborate. If they saw something that was working in one team, or one quad, they could pull it onto the other quad and actually communicate it up and say, hey, we're doing this cool thing. Why don't you guys try this? Or, we had this impediment here. As you're developing this piece of code or this product, watch out for this different area. That's why we are so collaborative. We had everything kind of working, shared, even though we were not in the same building for half the time that we built this. We had a very high degree of communication, whether it be Teams or verbally or video or things like that. And we made sure that we were constantly updating our ways of working across the digital organization, making sure that our as much as you have continuous improvement in code development and product development, we were very focused on championing what our product model looked like, what our Agile ways of working, what our design ways of working look like, and how that all interacted and intersected.
All right, terrific. How many teams would a single Agile coach typically be involved with?
Because they were scaled, a typical Agile coach in the quad could look up to maybe 10 teams. It was a very scalable model. We didn't want to overload with Agilist. We kind of kept it at the level that was the most efficient because we had Agilists down into the team or splitting teams. Our Agilists at the delivery level, they didn't really have more than 2 or 3. Typically 3 teams that they looked over, but it scaled up as we went, and we weren't overloaded with process and ways of working folks. We really focused on the product and the delivery, but we made sure that those folks kind of worked into the mix.
Yeah, and in the history of this company, did they ever employ a lot of Scrum Masters? And how did that evolve over time?
Yes. We called them Scrum Masters at the time just to figure out which level they worked at. But at the end of the day, they were all Agile. Our Scrum Masters weren't a typical Scrum Master. They did a lot of coaching. Our Agile coaches weren't your typical Agile coaches. They delved into engineering, and they delved into product, and they delved into design. And we're all involved in all of those type of things. So our Agile community of practice was very involved with our engineering community of practice, our product community of practice, and our design community of practice. They shared ideas. They shared ways of working across all of those community of practice so that we were all, the rising tide rises all boats or raises all boats. That's kind of the philosophy that we worked through.
Okay. And how much of um, the formal Scrum practices were really adopted by these teams?
That's an interesting question. It varied beyond across teams. Some teams, like to meet, once a day for their daily stand-up. Some teams were like, "Hey, I'm good. Let's meet once a week, twice a week, something like that." We were very informal in those processes. Our guidance was communicate and do your ceremonies that you need to do as needed, where you need to be. It wasn't very prescriptive of, oh man, I got to go to a 15-minute stand-up. It's going to really, mess with my day, or, I don't get anything out of it. We made sure that everything that they did when it came to meetings or collaboration or anything like that was valuable. We just didn't do ceremonies to do ceremonies. We didn't do retrospectives just to do that, just to do checkbox. Our whole goal was we aren't a checkbox organization, and just because we do the checkbox doesn't mean it's sufficient, doesn't mean it's working, doesn't mean it's going to make us better. We did everything we could to make ourselves better, and whether it be traditional agile ceremonies or untraditional agile ceremonies. Sometimes we would have product discussions taking a walk when we were working all together, right? It's like, hey, let's take a walk around the lake and let's have a chat and figure out what's going on. And this is an informal setting where we aren't using a backlog or we aren't using anything. I have this problem and let's figure it out. And at the end of the day, there weren't a whole lot of titles. The whole ways that everything worked was that everybody was just pushing to get the best experience to the customer and to fulfill those promises that our leadership made to the market.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Another question for you is the product managers that you had here, how much of their time was devoted to dealing with internal people in the company, whether it's engineering or designers or any other people within the company, and how much of their time was actually spent interacting with the external world, customers and industry analysts, so all the other people outside the company?
It varied because we had a very strong CX presence. They took a lot of their cues and a lot of their information from those folks. We also had in our design team, we had UX research folks. And so they would partner with the product managers and figure out what the voice of the customer was, what the market was doing, what people were saying, and things like that. So it was kind of an all pitch in to figure out what the market is doing, what customers are saying, what customers are needing, what's working, what isn't working. So we had those functions kind of built into our design and our product practice that were inherent to the way those people operated.
Okay. And did your product managers for each of these quads, when you say product manager, was there really just one person?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We did a lot of, I guess it's kind of the paired programming type concept of when we had a new product manager come on board or a new product analyst or anything like that, they would kind of partner up and work through what they needed to do. So, if a product owner or a product analyst came on board, they would work directly with a product manager or the SVP of product management to understand the vision. And they would actually start to write some of those stories and some of those epics of, hey, this is what my customer wants. This is how it needs to be figured out. I'm releasing the how to do it to the engineers and the designers. And then the ways that we do it, let me talk to the Agile coach or my Agilist and figure out how that works and what's the best way to deliver that to the market. So sometimes, in bigger areas, like I would say when we started working with some of the larger aggregators like Plaid or Intuit, there were multiple product managers on in some of these quads, or not in the quads, but in some of the teams, and they would basically help to figure out or design what that experience needed to be, or what that piece of functionality or service needed to be with the aggregators. And so in multiple cases, it scaled up a little bit more. Some of our teams, that's where our teams, keeping this team small, you were able to add a person to the team without really disrupting the way that the team operated or the dynamics.
Okay, great. In regard to the career progression, career pathing of product people, what was the entry level, and how was there a career path defined for product people?
That's a fantastic question, and I will tell you, this organization, we struggled. We struggled to start with, to figure out how we attract the best people, what a career path would look like, making sure that they didn't get lost in the mix. And so basically we came up with a career path for engineers, for agilists, for product folks, and for design folks. And so they would come in as like an associate product manager, or an associate product owner, or associate product analyst. And they would actually they would have outcomes associated with each of those levels. They would have compensation bands associated with those levels. They would have learning, and then they would have both external and internal experience associated with that. So they had a career progression right in front of them of moving from all the way from associate all the way to principal, and folks that wanted to get into a different field. So we had some project managers that wanted to be scrum masters or wanted to be agile coaches. And so they would come in as a scrum master in training or a product manager in training, and basically shadow a product manager and learn that profession. They would participate in the community of practices, which was each aligned to those 4 items that I was talking about. And, that's where we got our managers from. That's where we got our leaders from. And that's where we had a very strong career progression. So if you were hiring somebody into the organization, they knew where they would come in. They knew what the career progression would look like. And they knew that there was opportunities for them to move about within those disciplines. And so we were able to attract a lot higher caliber of talent, because then the folks that were really talented knew, hey, I could come in at this level, but immediately, or within a certain amount of time, I can elevate myself to leading people, or be more involved in vision, or more involved in strategy. And it was a fantastic model that we used. And once we paired that with we implemented Workday. So we had tooling on that, all around expectations and, goals and objectives and things like that. I know sometimes that's a dirty word, but, in this case, it allowed full transparency of where you were in the market, where you were in the career progression, and then what you could expect, or what you need to achieve, or how you need to operate to get to the next level.
Okay, so let's talk about product managers. So someone would come in as an associate product manager underneath the wing of an existing product manager and learn the ropes. Where do they go from there? What's the career progression? What are the skills needed to get to the next level? What is that next level called? And so forth.
So they would come in as an associate product manager, and they would, for all intents and purposes, let's say they were put into a team, and they worked in that team. They learned to understand the vision. Work to understand, how we did product life cycle, what it looked like with our tooling, how we built products, how we wireframe products, how we research products, how to use the different areas within the organization, whether it be UXR or UI or anything like that, how to work with the different functions, because we didn't expect them to understand every single function or be skilled in everything associated with that. We taught them to learn to use folks in terms of, hey, this person has this skill, I need to bring that into my fold, or I need to learn how to leverage their skill to achieve what I need to. Typically, they were put into the teams. They were helping to write stories. They were helping to work with the design and engineering folks in terms of, hey, that looks good. We really taught our teams to do a lot of wireframes and to communicate often of, hey, does this look right? This is how this works. Here's a little demo and things like that. And so, we taught them to lead demos and be very strong champions of product demos as we started to develop our products. And then as they went through the different career progressions, they were now, I'm going to lead a couple people, and now I'm going to lead be an executive quad, and now, oh hey, I don't really like product management, but I understand it. I want to go into the strategy area, because at the end of the day, the strategy that I develop is ultimately going to be delivered with products and what that looks like. And so they were able to jump careers, and they were able to, make that progression all the way from, associate all the way to principal. And then the institution, as you know, with banks, everybody's a VP, and it just moves up from there. So the titles here, the SVP, EVP, are banking titles, but basically their career progression went from all the way from associate to principal or senior principal, and a senior principal was an executive leader of that group.
Okay, when you started off with the story, you said that they struggled with the career pathing, but it sounds like that you described a process that they put in place. Was that process successful in really growing talent and retaining the talent, or did they struggle there?
To start with, it was a struggle, as with anything, because it was a brand new model. The good thing about it is that we were able to grow talent and retain them as we needed to. But the very good thing is that we were able to attract talent as we are growing, because these teams were growing exponential as we started to develop more digital products and more delivery to the market, and grow as a financial institution and become more and more involved in the digital scene, and expand our reach throughout the banking community. We were heavily involved with aggregators, and we worked with a lot of fintechs, and then we did a lot of innovation stuff that used banking as a platform to enable other things within organizations. For example, there was an application that coexisted with telemetry, and so when a delivery truck would get close to the gas station, the telemetry would kick off. It would enable a credit card and be able to use that credit card to get fuel. And then as the telemetry recognized that the truck was away from the gas station, it would cut off the credit card. And so you had a lot of fleet management stuff. That's just one example of how we used banking as a platform, banking as a service, to enable some of those innovative things. And that was the beauty of attracting that talent, is that you can work in this innovation space, you can work in traditional banking space, you can work in fintech, or you could work in internal stuff that we're building for branches and for internal just workings of how the bank worked internally. So there was a lot of good career progression We use some outside consultants to help us kind of spin up this model just because of bandwidth, and that was their expertise. But at the end of the day, folks were able to realize what their career path was. They could make their own decision. Hey, is this where I want to go within this company, or am I happy where I'm at? Or do I not like this career progression, and I'm going to look elsewhere. So it allowed them affordability to be able to make those decisions ahead of time. Kind of what Agile does for us is, gives us those the ability to make preemptive decisions about kind of where we're going, because we are adaptable and we are able to change as we go.
Excellent. David, thanks for sharing your story.